Welcome to Urban Fantasy PH. We are creatives who live in an urban society and give readers wish fulfillment by way of our stories, which is fantasy but reflective of reality. Here, we get to talk to fellow creatives like writers, authors, artists, comic book creators, filmmakers, you name it. We create and share our art here in the Philippines as well as abroad. My name is CJ Edmonds, I'm your host, and here is today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Urban Fantasy PH. Happy New Year and Happy Chinese New Year. Now, I realize that if you're going to compare the time period between the actual airing of season 1 to today, it certainly has been quite a long time in between episodes. But we are rectifying that this year, and we are moving ahead to bring you more consistently, or to bring you consistently more episodes as we move forward. My name is CJ Edmonds, and this is officially the second season of the podcast. Now, it can be looked on as episode 7, but since we are starting fresh, so I like to deem this as the first episode of the second season. Now, we are joined today by a fellow indie author who I met last year during the Philippine Book Fair, where I got the first of her 3 books in a fantasy trilogy. I'm holding up on the screen. There it is. Later, I joined her at Voltcon last September, which was my first 2-day con. We shared a table and we participated again in the October event of Komiket, which is the Filipino Comics Arts Market. And most recently, we participated again just this January 28 and 29 for the first Komiket of 2023. And we'll probably be joining the next one again once we've decided. She is an IT person by profession, but we know that her heart is. Let's all welcome Miss Jane Vergara to the podcast, Urban Fantasy PH. Woo!
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to the show and congratulations for season 2 of Urban Fantasy PH.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for joining us today here on the show. Finally, you are here. This is happening. And before we get to what is happening with you and keeping you busy, can you tell our viewers a little something about yourself?
Yeah, well, I love dogs. That's the first thing that you should know about me. We actually have 4 dogs here at home. Well, 3 of them are mini toy poodles, and then one
Mm.
cocker spaniel. And of course, during weekdays, I work in the office, so I still have a day job. I wish I just write full time, but there are bills that have to be paid for, so I still work. And then on the side, I do my writing.
There you go. It's nice to be talking to a fellow dog owner and a fellow dog lover. So, dog owners and dog lovers unite. Yes.
Yeah.
Mabuhay tayo this 2023. So, growing up, did you always dream of becoming an author? Because I feel that a lot of authors out there who discover this path for themselves
Mhm.
as they get older, or as they read, more books as they get older.
Yeah. Well, for me, oo. I think I was in grade 4 when I started to write. Um, it was sci-fi, but I didn't get to finish it. I
Mm-hmm.
was inspired by a Sydney Sheldon um, novel. I can't
Oh,
remember the title. I wasn't even able to finish it, but I think they were looking for aliens. I can't
oh,
remember the title.
Doomsday Conspiracy.
Yes, that one.
Yes, that book is
Yeah,
somewhere somewhere there
yeah.
behind me on my busy shelf.
My mother read it and she told me that it was a good one. And so I started reading it and I started writing my own book. I created parang from bond paper. So parang hinati-hati ko sila and then I came up
Mm-hmm,
with
mm-hmm.
a neat notebook and then that's where I started to write. So it's sci-fi during that time. The concept was that there's another world wherein they value copper more than gold. So
Oh,
that's the story. And then a spaceship crashed there, and but I wasn't able to finish that one. So yes, I've always wanted to write something, and then in high school I also was writing romance naman because I was inspired by what do you call that? It's at
Danielle
Sweet
Steele.
Valley, Sweet Dreams,
Sweet,
Sweet
Sweet
Dreams. So
Dreams.
during that
Okay.
time, I read Sweet Dream stories. And the title of it was TL means true love, because there's a story, there's a PS I love you. I think PS was Paul Strode. So I got very interested then, and so I wrote it. But I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to finish it again. So growing up, I've always wanted to become a writer, but I never got the chance to really write one until I was already working. And then the first novel that I wrote is a romance. Romance pero sub story siya. So there's this person who has cancer, and then she only had 6 months to live, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. But there's also some sort of fantasy there,
Mm-hmm.
because well, I'll share it because I think nobody naman, there's not much who read it, so wala masyadong spoilers. So what
Okay.
happened was that she had a wish that sana okay lumaki yung anak niya, because during the time that she discovered that she had cancer, the kid was only 2 or 3 years old. And then, so she didn't want to tell her husband. So she went on a journey, and not knowing that when she had the accident, she actually time traveled to the future, 20
Really?
years to the future. And then that person who accidentally hit her was actually her grown son. So, and then they spent 3 days together. And then after that, she went back home, and then not knowing that it was her son that she met during that journey. And then afterwards, yung guy kasi that she met was wearing a necklace that's very unique, and he told her that it was given to him by his mother. And later
Mm.
on, when she was dying, her husband wanted to surprise her, and they had a love story kasi wherein they're always discussing disco lights. So they dance in the disco. That's where they met. That's how they got engaged.
Mm.
etc. So he had a necklace custom made for her, and it's that blinking disco light. And so that's the time that she realized that that guy pala was her son. And then she
Was her
realized
son.
that there was her miracle already. She thought that her miracle was she's going to survive the cancer, but in the end pala, she's going to meet her son and know that he fared well after she's gone. So that's how it.
Oh, that's so nice. Wait, ang tanong, the question is, among those three, alin ba
Yeah.
ng mas tapos na and ready for release?
Tapos na yun. Wait. Can you give me a second?
Whoa, wait, you still have all those? Wow.
The
You still
only
have
one.
all those manuscripts. And that's great. Galing mo magtago, ah.
No,
Aba, aba.
only this one, because this one I actually had it published via Amazon. So I
Hmm.
ordered a hard copy. And this
Oh,
is the
nice.
necklace. So I
Oh,
grabbed
wait,
this.
the title is the necklace. The necklace.
Yes, it evolved because I'm trying a lot of things on marketing. So initially it was the gap between forever, because that was the time that she met her son. And then
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking maybe I'd like to make it sound more like Nicholas Sparks. So I changed the title to The Necklace. And now there's a couple kissing. And then during the time, I was also experimenting with a pseudonym.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried a different name. So it's N.O.
Wait,
Norton.
I'm trying to read that. Okay, N.O. Norton. Okay.
Yes.
Wait,
Uh,
okay, what's what's the secret? What's the reason behind the pseudonym?
Yeah, I used the pseudonym N.O. Norton because I wrote a fantasy book, and I noted that most of the fantasy writers usually they have first letters for their first name and last name, like
Mm-hmm. Keep it
Cassandra
rolling.
Clare, Cassandra Clare, and who wrote Percy Jackson series. I
Ah,
can't.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes,
Yeah, but
yes. Yeah,
I was thinking.
we know him, but his name is at the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, me too. So
Yeah, Philip.
there. So that's
Yeah,
why I
yeah.
made it NN. And I'm thinking actually of coming up with a printout also here in the Philippines. Except that I have some concerns because this is also set not in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, when I was writing, I'm always trying to target the other countries because I believe they have better adoption of Kindle. So I thought that that's how I'll be marketing my books. But it was only later on that I realized that the Philippines actually is a very big market for publications. So that's why there I met you at the MIBF, and then starting then we've always been at events together. So it's
Yep,
very
yep.
nice to meet CJ.
I know, I know. It's kismet. So I'm so lucky.
Yeah, me too.
Nothing,
Likewise.
nothing is an accident, as a mentor of mine keeps reminding me. But yeah, since you have that story already printed, I hope that you are still, well, one day you will be able to find that those two stories that you wrote way back then. If not, maybe recreate them at some
Yeah,
point. Yeah, but
probably.
fingers crossed. So more stuff to create, and that's always a good thing.
Mhm.
While most authors usually would start off as being a reader, I don't think you can be an author if you are not a reader first. But you said that you wrote, you wrote a love story, and you also wrote fantasy, and now your trilogy is a fantasy. Would you say that there's something about the fantasy genre that made you gravitate towards it?
Yes. I've always loved fantasy books. And then my first inspiration for writing this fantasy trilogy is actually I want to have a power. I have the song is
Me too, ako
actually
din.
quite it's actually quite funny because I have curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, and I usually go to the hairdresser and have my hair straightened, so that
Okay.
it's easier to fix. So I'm thinking that if I can only have a power, my power will be that if I touch somebody else's hair, it's going to be straightened without anything, without using anything.
Okay.
So and then I realized that perhaps I can use that thought, well, not to make it something funny, but to really create a world. The problem was the book that I'm reading, which I love so much, is Wheel of Time. And Wheel of Time is a very long series. And I'm actually thinking that to
Capital
create a
L
world,
for long.
yeah. And if I'm going to create a world like that, it's going to take my whole life probably just to finish it. So I have an idea already of writing something, but it wasn't until I read the Hunger Games series of Suzanne Collins that
Mhm.
I got the idea that I can actually come up with something simpler. I'm still going to build a world, but it doesn't have to be as complicated and as complex as the one that Robert Jordan built. So it's a mix of those two. I like to think that I was able to learn from those two books as to how to write my material. And
Mhm.
that's when I started writing. And during that time, I was living with my brother in Mandaluyong. We're working in Ortigas. And during the ride home, going to and to work to the workplace and going back home, I would always talk to him about the story. So I would share him that, okay, this is my book. I've written already that for there's this boy who doesn't have any power, and then this is what's going to happen. And then that actually fed my imagination because he will respond to me with something like, what if there's a village that's full of invisible people? So it's just a thought. And then I realized that, oh, I think I can make good use of that. So and that's why there are Nivans in the book. So there's a
Mhm.
community there. There's a specific clan wherein their power is all invisibility.
Yeah.
So, gano'n. So, every time he will give me something, some thoughts, and then it would strike me as, wow, I think parang puwede yun sa buko. So, I would ask him, "Can I borrow that? Can I just use that idea?" And then he would say, "Okay, yes." And now
Buti na lang
sometimes
hindi naka-copyright 'yan.
right.
'Pag hindi, sisingilin ka ng kapatid mo.
Oo. And the funny thing is, when I tell him all of these things now, sometimes he doesn't even remember them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Invisible Village, I think there's a spark. And then sa book 2 kasi, there's another person with a different power.
Mm,
And he's calling himself the Swordless Swordsman. So that also
okay.
came up as a joke when we were driving, and he said that he said that he wanted to create a series. It's going to be a comedy fantasy. And then he wanted someone for slapstick humor na he's a swordless swordsman. So, parang sabi ko, "Uy, bagay din sa akin 'yan. I want to take that too. Can I have that?" And then sabi niya, "Sure, you can use that." And the swordless swordsman actually is one of my favorite characters then in the book, but he's only introduced in book 2.
In book two.
So
Okay.
there.
So people will
So
have to, of course, people will have to read book one before you go on
yeah.
to book two. But
Yes.
I was wondering, did your parents encourage reading in the household? Mine didn't exactly encourage, they didn't frown on it, but they didn't really, push me towards books and left me to my own devices until I discovered the pleasure of reading for myself.
Ah, they always wanted me to study. To study.
Grades
So,
muna, grades.
yeah, grades muna. So they wanted me to read the textbooks and have a good study habit. But I think reading books and novels, I just copied that from my mother kasi she loves reading books.
Mm-hmm.
And the books that she read before, I would grab them if it's not PG-18. So and then she will lend them to me, and then I will read them. And then it's actually my cousins who have lots of books. So I think kompleto sila nung Sweet Dream series and Sweet
Nice.
Pie. And they also have R.L. Stein. So
Mm-hmm.
those books na that were very famous when we were young, they have those. So those are the things. Sa kanila ko nakuha yon. Plus, I have another older cousin na neighbor ko naman na she also loves reading books. So that's when I got interested in romance kasi mas romance talaga yung hilig niya, Mills and Boons and all those stuff.
Right, right. Meals and Boons, and nakikita ko pa back in the house then, Barbara Cartland.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that sort of answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, did you go out and find books for yourself, or did you mostly depend on what people recommended you to read? Like when we were in school, there would be book reports, and you could not review any other books except those which are on the official list, which of
Mhm.
course will make you complain and say that, I mean, if you are a voracious reader, and
Mhm.
you'll say that I like this particular book. Why is it not in the list? I can't review this, but I don't like the list. But of course, it's homework. You cannot be choosy. Hindi ka pwedeng mamili kung ano yung listahan. Yun na talaga yung ang dapat. So yeah, would you remember a book that you had to read for a book report? Ayan, bigla ko naisip.
For I think it was I read it's a classic, Around the World in 80 Days. So that's
Ah,
what I
Jules
read for
Verne.
a book report
Jules.
kasi yeah. And during the time, I didn't have that much appreciation for that book. So ngayon na lang. To me, it was an assignment, so I didn't find it enjoyable. I find it
Mm-hmm.
as sort of like a chore. So, and when I was younger, I didn't like doing assignments. If I can skip it, I will.
I
So
think all of us never liked any of it.
right, right. So that's why I enjoyed it more when I was doing it outside of class.
Mm,
But to answer your questions, when I was younger, usually the books that I read are those that were owned by my cousins, and those that are available in the library. And when I started working, that's the time that I got to buy my own books.
in short,
So
pamana.
yes, pamana. So ngayon, any book, I'm usually attracted by those who wrote parang parang like Khaled Hosseini.
Mm.
Um,
The
the
si Kite
uh,
Runner ba yun?
yes,
Or
Kite Runner,
yeah.
A Thousand Splendid Suns.
Mm-hmm.
So those books depict just regular life, but it's
Mm-hmm.
really the words that are very powerful and the images that are conveyed to you. It's really very powerful. So parang those tend to stick to my mind. So yun yung
Mm-hmm.
mga favorites ko naman now that I'm older.
And you appreciate, reading different kinds of books. Yeah. Sino ba to? Terry Brooks, the fantasy, the premier fantasy writer, did say that, let's say, if you write romance, or if you like if you write thrillers, try not to read just for that genre. Try to
Mm,
read outside your genre, so you can at least see how, I guess, how plotting is done by other authors of different genres, how a conversation goes between two different characters. And so
mm,
it's also nice because it's really that way of reading more different kinds of things, that you open yourself up, diba?
mhm.
Parang ano lang din, it's just like, if all you know is Italian food, and you refuse to eat anything other than that, number one, you'll get sick of it. Magsasawa ka rin. uh, and number two, when something new comes along, like when there was this when the ramen craze first hit Manila and everyone's going gaga over ramen, you won't learn to appreciate it, or you won't learn to open yourself up to new things, because that's all you see, that's all you want, and that's all you like. Diba? So, I understand the reasoning behind that. Now, we go to what we are supposed to be discussing, which is which is this.
Thank
And yeah.
you.
So,
This is my
um, there you
technology.
go. I finally got to finish Breaking the Scroll. This is the
Thank
first in its
you.
trilogy. Thank you for signing it for me last year when we met at Manila Book Fair. But for those who have yet to discover the book, I know we touched on, you touched on a little bit of what it is, but like a brief summary. What is the book one all about?
Okay, so book
With no
one.
spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. I don't know to give spoilers. So book one, actually, I have a copy here beside me. It's Breaking the Scroll, and the reason is that, well, why breaking the scroll? I won't reveal that. But the story is actually about three friends, and there's a boy who doesn't have any power, and he's the only one who's like that in their world. Now, there's a place. This is Akia. Akia is the world. And it doesn't have to be, when I talk about power, it doesn't always have to be super magnificent.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just speaking really, really loud, that's also considered as a power because you can pretty much make good use of it. And sometimes it's just jumping really high or really
Mm-hmm.
having a good voice. So in that world, they are all treated as special abilities. And of course, like the usual dystopian, similar to a dystopian world, there's an evil or a bad emperor, and then something has to be changed about that. But I
Mm-hmm.
also touch on about bullying here in my book. So the boy who doesn't have any power, he wanted to have one
Mm-hmm.
because he's being bullied at school. So that was the main driver why he wanted to transition into someone who has special abilities as well. And he has a friend, Mayo. So this one is Kino, and then Piper's the girl, and
Mm-hmm.
then Mayo is actually the other boy. So Kino's best friend is Mayo, and what they would do is that they would try to make Kino fly. By creating wings, and then they will go to hills, and then from there they're going to jump. Yeah, I know it's crazy, but they're just
Yeah,
kids.
that's how the book opens. Them trying
Yeah,
it out, diba?
yes, yes.
So I guess, as really, when you are a kid, you would go to great lengths,
Mhm.
just to achieve your goal. And in this case, the goal is not only well, not exactly realistic, right? But it's also dangerous.
Yeah.
So ganun talaga pagka if you're a kid, para lang magawa, para lang
Yes.
masabing nagawa ko, I will do whatever it is that I need to. But how long did it take you to write this first book? And was there a particular idea that inspired you to write it? I know that you mentioned that you read a lot. You read Robert Jordan, and you felt that reading Robert Jordan inspired you to create new worlds. But was there a specific person that inspired you to 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 concretize the idea, or maybe something that you read or something that you saw on TV?
Hmm. Actually, I'm trying to think about that. Um, it just so happened that one day I had free time, and
Mm-hmm.
I realized that perhaps now's the right time that I should come up with my own story. Um, Writing it at first was easy because I wasn't concerned about the typographical errors, the error intenses,
Mm-hmm.
the loopholes, the plot holes, all of those stuff. I wasn't very concerned during that time. So what I'm a pantser, by the way. So I would just go sit in front of my computer, and then I'll key in the words, and I was able to actually finish it in less than a year for book one. But that was draft one. So it was so awful. I know that you will still spot, well, probably a lot of things here that need to be edited further. But
Mm-hmm.
during that time, it was really bloody. And I have a friend who was an editor in her school paper before. So I asked her, can you read this? And can you please check out what needs to be improved? And then she said,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, even your punctuations are incorrect. So there are just so many challenges because I don't have any technical writing background, so it's really I just wrote based on what I remember when I read books, but
Mm-hmm.
apparently I didn't remember a lot. So that's the challenge. But anyway, my goal then was I have this idea about a world wherein there are everybody has a special ability, and I just wanted to finish with that. And then when I was about three-fourths writing the book, there was one time, um, I think it was in part three, the Akian Wine Festival and the
Mm-hmm.
Secret Stage portion. I really couldn't stop because, the characters are all acting out. They're telling me what to write. I've heard that somewhere. I'm not sure if it's from a Joanna Penn interview or if it's a book that I read. But they said that at some point you're just going to be someone who types in what they're doing because they're going to really act on their own. If
Yeah.
you created the characters, gave them their specific characteristics and traits, they would know how to act in a given situation, and that's what happened. So I couldn't stop. I had to send a text message to my boss and told him that I have to take a leave, emergency leave, because I had to write 20,000 words in one day. So after that,
Oh, wow. Okay.
full. But I was so inspired during that time because I could feel the ending and I could see it. So there, I wrote it for less than a year, and then after I finish it, the funny part is that I went to my boss and said that I would like to resign. So
Akala
that's
ko
true.
magli-leave ka na naman eh.
No, not leave. After that, I really resigned.
Okay.
Um, I said that I think I can write this book. Initially, I was planning to make four books for this, but by the time that I was in book three, I was
Mhm.
getting tired already. I wanted it to be finished. So I left the corporate world for 6 months and focused on my writing. But that's another story because during that time, um, I was so afraid that my savings are getting depleted. So I
Mm-hmm.
need to find other work. So for that, because I don't have any side hustle during that time, what I did was I looked up Upwork and Odesk during that time, and then I had to ghostwrite for other people. So I created short stories, 5,000 words, and usually I would be paid $80 or $100 depending on who's asking me to write it. And
Nice.
then I wasn't able to focus
Take
on my
note,
writing.
dollars. Woohoo, dollars.
$100. So, but the challenge there was I was supposed to be finishing my trilogy and I wasn't able to do that because I was thinking of the bills that might soon pile up. So the 6 months essentially was lost to just me writing for other people. But that's the story. I was able to write it fast during that time because all of the images, how it's gonna end, I already know how that's gonna happen. And
Mm-hmm.
then but it took so long because of all the editing, and during that time, I I wasn't so good with words. Sometimes I would, this is what I mean, and then this is what I would write.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to talk to a lot of people. During the time, I was also busy looking for other writers who are experiencing the same, who would want to share their activities and who would help out, perhaps become a beta reader for me. And then in turn, I would also be that to him or her, but it's very difficult during that time, and because my focus was not here in the Philippines, I would just join communities in the Kindle direct publishing, but it's different when you just talk to the computer versus you get to talk to other authors or writers who
Right.
are experiencing the same things that you're experiencing at that moment. So there, that's how long it took me to write book one. There's a
But
lot of backstory there.
I'm sure, I'm sure. But looking back, you really had to go through that process,
Mhm.
and kind of like squeeze yourself dry before you can actually finish that, and say that I have a finished book in my hands and it's been edited and it's ready for publication. So, once you publish book one, sabi nga nila, you'll get the bug that you feel na parang I still need to do another one. And then when you do the second one, you feel like parang I still need to do a third one. So, it's nanganganak at nanganganak, as they say, and it will never stop. Among creatives, let's say regardless of the medium, there is always that debate about inspiration. Do you wait for it before you do anything, or do you just jump into it and create what you are passionate about so that inspiration can come on board? So, which of the two are you?
I think I would just attack it and then wait for the inspiration to kick in. Um,
That's the same thing that Stephen King says.
mm,
Because if you always wait for inspiration to come, you might be waiting a long time.
yeah.
So just show up in front of in front of the computer, and just go into it. And while you're doing that, you make the way ready for inspiration to come in. And
Hmm.
that really is so true. That really is so true. I agree on that. And having gone through my own process, there is truth to that, right? But of
Hmm.
course, again, everyone's process will be different. You
Yeah.
mentioned Pantser, but let me just kind of like clarify for those people who may have just heard the word for the first time. Pantser, it's a writing term, and that means writing from the seat of your pants, which is you don't specifically follow a pattern or an outline that you write on, and you just write whatever feels or comes to you at the moment that you're writing. So some people write that way. Some people have to outline it. So there's there will also be that debate, whether it's okay to be a pantser or to be a an outliner. But our favorite, Joanna Penn, we love you.
I love you.
She calls it discovery writing or discovery writer because yeah, in a way that's what you do when you are a pantser. You
Mm,
discover things on the page while you type. Now, for those who have read book one, you may already have favorite characters listed, but I wanted to ask you about your decision to write from separate POVs or point of views in the first person narrative because usually in big fantasy books it's either third person narrative and centers on the hero, or if it's first person, it's all only his POV and none of the others. So you basically did what George R. Martin does, but in first person. So I
mm.
was wondering, how did you come to arrive at decision to write it like that?
Um, I always find it easier kasi to write from the first person point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
know that I'll be challenged if I write in the third person. So
Okay.
that's why I started writing it. Initially, there were just a few characters. But then, as the story went on, it seemed like I need to inject more characters. And I couldn't stop na. I couldn't just make it a third person point of view for some and then first person point of view for the others.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also tough for me because I ran the risk of making them sound all alike. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I had to be very conscious about as I was writing it before. Um, yeah, I really found it tough, but it's the point of view that I was most comfortable with, so I had
Mm-hmm.
to keep on doing that.
Okay. Along with that, I also see that you gave titles for each chapter. So I
Yes.
was wondering, does it limit you on what you write per chapter because there is a given title for it, or does it discipline you to conform your plots per chapter because of the title given?
Actually, that probably may be in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Because initially they didn't have title. Initially
Okay.
they were just chapters. And then for big scenes, they were the ones that had titles like the Kian Wayne Festival, the Secret Passage, etc. Because if I just split it into chapters, there are times that there are just probably 300 words per chapter from the point of view of one speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come up with titles for those for chapters wherein there are multiple speakers. But later on, I realized that it would be better if I give titles to all of the chapters.
Okay.
And for that, my inspiration was The Wheel of Time, because in The Wheel of Time, every chapter also has a title. And I found it interesting. And also the logos inside. I'm not sure if you noticed. So here in the book, so this is a sample. So there's a logo there. It corresponds to the speaker.
Yes, I saw
So
that.
yeah, it's always the boy sign if it's Kino Mark. And then there's also a lightning, but this one is my favorite. It's a flower for
Yes,
Dogan. Yeah,
for Dogan. Yes, for
yeah,
Dogan
so
Ronda.
so I also sort of yeah, I copied that from how it's being done in Robert Jordan's book. So that's another of his influences to me there.
I like also that Piper has her own logo, which are the feet. I will not say why, but you will have to read. No spoilers again. For Dogan, same thing. There's a little bit of you really have to read it in order to know why.
Yes.
For Soul, I'm seeing that it's a tree.
Yes, it's a tree.
Yeah, and I love Lamar or Lamar. Would you read it as Lamare or Lamar?
Originally I wanted it Lamare, but now I read it as Lamar.
Lamar. Okay, Lamar will have a scroll obviously because she is the royal scribe, so that's that's a given. But yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed, and I like it that it's very distinct. You know who is talking, and you know that the chapter is about this particular
Mhm.
person. So yeah, I just hope that people who have read it so far will have noticed that icon for each
SE02.
character. Yeah. Speaking of giving names to each chapter, there's also the task of naming your surroundings. Like, of course, this book is set in a fictitious fantasy world that's called Akia.
Mhm.
You have different provinces like Anarida, Canela, Derela, Minuin, and other places in the book. How did you come up with the names of the places?
Um, Originally, there's a place here, Canela. Originally,
Mm-hmm.
it was Willingham, Willingham, and then I asked a friend. Uh, I told her, Can you read this chapter for me, and then tell me what you think about it?" And
Mm-hmm.
then the first thing that she said was, "It sounded so English, like Buckingham, Willingham," and then it got me to thinking, "Oh no, I don't want that." Connotation, like I want it to be a really distinct place.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to come up with other names for the provinces. And then my inspiration are the other books that I read and movies that I saw that involve fantasy. Caristia is actually, I patterned it from Minas Tirith.
Oh
It
yes, from
sounded nothing alike.
Tolkien.
Yeah,
Tolkien, yes.
they sounded nothing alike, but that was what I was thinking of when I had that Caristia. And then Sonista, actually, this is an evil place. I patterned it from one of the places in Wheel of Time. I just can't remember which one, but there's
Okay.
also an evil place there, wherein everybody who goes there, they become sort of tainted because of the vileness in that place.
Hmm.
So those are my inspirations, but in naming them, I just wanted to make them sound like they're made up,
Yeah.
and are not actual representations, except for one. There's one place here that's actually existing in in the Philippines.
Yes,
To pay
Bulaknin.
homage. Yes, to pay homage to my barangay and where I was born. So there's
Yeah.
Tulak din here. And usually when I'm selling to fellow Batangueños, I show it to them that, okay, if you buy this, you're supporting a fellow Batangueña. This is where I came from.
That's good marketing. That's good
Yes.
marketing. So yeah, people learn from this. Maganda. I didn't
Especially
think
if
of
you're
that, but
going to sell local.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Actually, I mean, if you had not mentioned that, that was the one thing that was running through my mind. Sa Bulacning, parang Bulacan. Okay. So, tama nga. So, my hunch was right. One name that I like a lot is on the southwestern part, which is just right above Derela. Pril? Pril or is it Pril? How would you read that?
Actually, I read it as Prile.
Prile. Okay, Prile.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. That sounds Italian, but it
Hmm.
sounds nice. It sounds
Hmm.
nice. Still on the subject of names, I also noticed that some characters are named more modern.
Yes.
Like Piper. Piper's last name is San Diego. You also have Marcela. Her last name is Benilde.
Yeah.
Mayo's last name is Calo. Tala has Alguila, and others. There seems to be a Spanish influence in those names. Was that something deliberate on your part, or are you breaking or creating a new rule in fantasy writing?
Actually, no, they're all just happenstance. Piper is named Piper San Diego because I saw a movie of Piper Perabo, and
Mm-hmm.
she's one of my favorite actresses. So I named one of the key characters here as Piper.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
then I have a character here, Mayo Calo. It's actually short for mayonnaise. and calories.
Oh,
uh,
hey. Okay,
and
that's a nice one.
yeah, and I have a friend, the editor friend that I told you about. Her name is. I'm trying to make it like yung um kay J.K. Rowling, 'di ba meron siya do'n na binabali-baliktad niya yung names. So I'm trying to make it like I am Ayako. She's a very dear friend. She's the one who helped out editing the first book. And I wanted to give that to her. And I told her that kaso hindi nagkasya yung name eh. So it's just Mayo Calo. I wasn't able to fully um
Mm.
produce her entire name. And then San Diego, usually these are just influences from my day-to-day life.
Uh-huh.
Like San Diego, I have an office mate who's San Diego. Okay, it sounded right, so I made it Piper San Diego. And then the one that you mentioned, Marcela Binil, I
Yeah.
was watching Game of Thrones.
Uh-huh.
There was I didn't know that subconsciously I retained the name. It was my character is Marcelo or Marcela. I
Marcela.
forgot.
Marcela.
Yeah, so
Marcela.
I didn't know that I was actually using a name from there. And then Binil, it's just from Lasal.
Yeah, from
So
Lasal. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
those
So,
things that are familiar to me, sometimes I end up writing them without actually knowing that it came from there. And only when I try to think about it later on, how did I come up with that name? And that's when I would realize that I copied it from there. And the book that I showed you earlier, this one, the original name of the woman here is Emilia, and it
mhm.
was because of Emilia Clarke.
Emilia Clarke.
I
Yeah, yeah,
didn't
yeah.
know that when I was reading the names during the credits. I was absorbing the name Emilia because I didn't know that she was Emilia. Later on, I found out that that's Emilia Clarke. So my subconscious also got that name. So before typing, right before beginning to write my book, I have no specific preference as to what to name them.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
just, yeah, there's no special preparation there. I just came the first name that comes to mind. And then
Have
sometimes,
were there
it-
ever characters that you named while you were writing it, but when you were editing, you felt that I think I have to change the name.
um, not for this book,
Okay.
but for this one. When I was trying to test marketing the book, I changed some names because I
Mhm.
think that this name will sound better in a romance book rather
Ah,
than the old
okay.
name that I used. So that one. But for the fantasy, for this one, no. And then the funny thing here is usually I pay tribute. I usually pay tribute to people I get to talk with and my other inspirations. So, for
Mhm.
example, there's an elder Tala here. Tala is actually the nickname of my father. But when I'm
Oh.
writing it, I didn't know what characteristics he will have. So I'm sorry if some of the characters that I named after people I know are enemies, or lucky for you if you're one of the protagonists. But if you're an antagonist, I'm really sorry. And then some of them have very minimal roles, like Oka, Master Oka. There's a Master Oka here. And
Mhm.
then there's also the Mima here. Mima is actually the nickname of my mother.
Mm.
So yeah, and Timbukte actually that's a nickname. It sounded so funny to my ears, but while I was writing it, I didn't change it anymore. But that was what we lovingly call my brother, just to tease.
Oh.
It's not really a nickname, but when we're calling him names, that's how we address him.
When I was reading that, when I saw that particular name, what came to mind was actually a place, Timbuktu.
Yeah, yeah,
So
actually,
so
right?
it's
I
like
wanted to
okay.
change it. At some point, I wanted to because even IKEA, especially now that we have IKEA here, people are usually staring at my banner and they're saying, "Return to IKEA? Is that IKEA?" And then I sometimes I realize the ridiculousness of naming it. like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it was, I think I was trying to copy something that sounds like Achilles,
All right.
uh, but I couldn't think of a better place. So I came up with Akia, and
Well,
there.
IKEA is good. Actually, if you have not told me, if you have not referenced IKEA, I probably would not have thought about it. But yeah, I also was told then that the actual pronunciation of IKEA is IKEA, not
Ah,
IKEA. So
okay, okay.
yeah, that's what. So that's
That's
okay.
good. That's
That's
good.
okay.
It separates it from
Yeah.
the.
There's only 26 letters in the alphabet, so there will be some names that will sound like
Yeah.
and look like that, but that's okay.
Thank you.
That is the challenge of every writer having to come up with names, and especially if you're a fantasy writer. I mean, it's so difficult to come up with names, and that's why I think some people would go on name generators just to not online name generators, just to get a different combination
Mhm.
of names. And yeah, now that I'm done with book one, of course I need to read two and three. And since we meet a lot, I will have to do that when I see you again. But I've got some more questions here for you. Simple ones that have to do with the craft. I was wondering if you have any writing rituals before you sit down to write. Some people will make a cup of coffee before they sit down to write. Some people will uh, I don't know, light a candle or something like that.
For me, I need a cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And during the time that I was writing this book, I used to smoke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are usually my habits because I'll squeeze it in the morning. So what I'll do is get up really early and then drive to the office. And then there's a Starbucks there. So I would hang out there outside so I can smoke. And then I will finish my book. So that's usually my habit.
Your
And
habit.
then if I feel like today I need to finish the book, I need to write a very significant part of it, what I would do is I would stay home and then have that coffee brewer brewing the entire time. And then, yeah, I would take a break and then smoke a bit. And what I usually do also is after writing a few chapters, I bought a converter. I didn't have Vellum before. So Vellum is a
Mm-hmm.
tool that writers use to convert their work into different formats like EPUB and PDF, etc. But it was so expensive. So during the time, I just looked for something that will help me convert it to an EPUB version. I was able to find one. I think it's just around 1,000 pesos.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I would do is after I write a few chapters, I would convert it to EPUB and then send it to my iPad and then I would read it. I would read it while drinking coffee and smoking a cigarette. And then I will go back to writing. And then after I write a few other chapters again, I would read the entire thing. So I'm actually my first fan. So that got me rolling because it reminded me of the things that happened before this specific event.
Mm-hmm.
And then it made me picture what's gonna happen next. So those
Okay.
are the habits that I had.
Right. And also when you go through editing, some people cannot edit on screen. Um, it's preferred that if you're done with what you think is a semi-final draft, you have to print it out, because when you print it, you look at it differently, and you might and you'll be able to catch some maybe plot points that you forgot,
Mhm.
or some more clever way of structuring your sentence that you did not see when you're looking at it through a computer. So it helps to distance yourself from your original work, and that's why if you're done, I don't know if you do this too. If you're done with your novel, you won't touch it for about maybe a week or a few days, just to kind of like, restart yourself. And so that when you come back again to it, when you start editing, that's when you look at it with different eyes,
Mhm.
and you edit it as if you're not the writer. You edit it as if you're the reader, and that's not something how you want it to come out to you. And then, of course, you change it subsequently. Do you play music when you write, or you prefer the quiet?
I prefer silence.
Same,
Yeah,
same. Me too. I
yeah,
can't do that. Right, and then there's music or there's TVs. Like,
yeah.
nah.
It distracts me.
It's distracting as well. Prefer unless if I want to get through a specific scene, um, like most recently when I was trying to write book two of my own work, I had to play. Did I did I say it? I had to play Robin Thicke's song that's called "Sex Therapy" on loop the entire night just to get me through that scene. And Robin Thicke, I have you to thank for that.
Congratulations.
Kanta pa lang, alam mo na what it is all about. Ayan. Preferred writing time, day or night?
Usually morning.
Usually
Day.
morning. Okay. All right. What is next for Jane? I mean, you have these three books to introduce us to your writing and to your world. Are you creating new worlds this 2023?
No, no new worlds yet.
Not
Right
yet.
now, I'm
Okay.
focusing on marketing. Um, uh, Before, I'm very shy to market my book, but now I want more people to read it. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's it's a good trilogy,
It
and
is.
thank you. And I really want to reach out more fantasy readers. The venues that we're attending right now, I believe, are focused on other stuff. That's why I'm also trying to build my network of writers, get in touch with them, try to see if they'd be willing to do events as well. So we
Mm-hmm.
can have some sort of an IndieCon here in the Philippines aside from the MIBF. Because, as you know, MIBF is very expensive. I just got lucky last time because there's an indie publisher that adapted my book. And I wanted to be there the entire 3 days because that was the first time I joined an event. So I took a leave for 1 day and then had to stay there for the next 2 days. But I think that even with that, there's also a different crowd that's going. Usually, these are the libraries, and they're really focused on books that are set here in the Philippines and that
Mm-hmm.
propagate, the Filipino culture. And my books are different. That's why I'm trying to connect with fantasy and sci-fi writers because that's the linkage. That's our common point. We're building
Yeah.
worlds, we're building
Yes.
imaginary places and characters and powers and all that stuff. And we just need to get it in front of the right audience. So that's my focus for 2023. And then I'm also thinking of, for those who have read my book, they're telling me, yeah, what's next? And what's next is actually, I plan on writing some romance romance romance
Romance
book,
novels.
but
Okay.
also for them. So
Uh-huh.
like if there's a character that died in this book, I wanted some sort of this person reconnecting with his old love, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also in a fantasy world as well, and it's going to be um it's just I just want to create or give them some more life
Mm-hmm.
because I think that maybe I have killed them mercilessly. So there. But it's still going to be set in this world.
Okay.
Uh,
The world of Akia.
I have several people already in mind that I wanted to create love stories for, but I haven't gotten the chance to start with that yet. And then
Okay.
on the side, I'm trying to experiment with something, but maybe I shouldn't discuss it
Yeah,
here.
let's make it as a surprise. I
Yes.
guess, yeah. Let's not preempt, but at
Uh,
least we know that the world of Akia is not limited to just three books. That we might
yes.
have some other side stories for that,
Yes.
and also some new worlds to watch out for
Mhm.
from you this 2023. We would love to give readers a chance to read your book, and for those who would want to get a copy and a copy of your book, where can they do that?
Yes, for the copies of my book, whether it's book one, this is Breaking the Scroll. The second one is The Dark Unveiling. So you know what's gonna happen here. And then the third one is Return to Akia. So all of my books are available on Shopee and Lazada. So whichever platform you want to use, that's okay. And then you can also directly connect with me, and you can buy copies of my books. And
Hmm.
if you want soft copies, you can actually check out my website. It's javergara.com. And I can send you soft copies for a very minimal fee, transferred to my Gcash account. So that's it. And then also, I have my books on Amazon. If you are on Kindle Unlimited, you can actually read all the three books for free. It's available there. I just recently enrolled again. I pulled it down from Wattpad because I think more people want Tagalog books there. So I'm trying to come up with a
Hmm.
Tagalog version of my books, but it's very difficult to do that.
That's
So
gonna be challenging.
yeah, so there, that's where you're gonna find me. And then Komiket, of course, every now and then I attend their events, so you can always catch me there.
Yeah, and if you do catch Jane over there, don't be shy. Say hi, tell her that
Yeah,
you liked her books, tell her that you're a fan, tell her that you've read it, and just just be natural and just say hi. Okay, that's what every author likes.
yeah.
That if you've read their books, that let them know how you felt about the book. Okay. So how can they find you on social media? Are you on Instagram? Are you on Twitter?
Yes, I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. My handle is at Jane Sedai. That's JeinSedai. But also you can just search Jane Vergara. You will see my page there.
On Facebook. Yeah. Um, should I ask why the Jane is spelled as Jein and not Jane?
Um,
Is that a Wheel of Time influence again?
and yeah, a bit. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And also Sedai. Sedai
Yes,
is
Sedai,
actually
of course. Yes, the Aes Sedai. Having watched season one of Wheel of Time on Amazon Prime, I at least got primed for that. I can't wait for season two.
yes. Me
I know I
too.
have to watch. Well, I have to watch season one again before season two comes on, and hopefully by the time season two comes on, I would have read book one. I know it's sacrilege being a fantasy reader, and I have not tried Robert Jordan. But just that's just so many authors out there, so many fantasy authors that we would love to read, and most, if not all, fantasy books are all door stoppers. Ganyan sila kakapal.
Right.
Right? And kung may kaaway ka, batuhin mo ng fantasy book. Tumba sila kaagad. It's that thick, but the worlds that they present, the worlds that they give us, are rich and
Mm.
full of imagination, and so full of promise, and that's what we wish for you, Jane, down the line for 2023, and for the years to come, with all other books that we know that you are going to be writing. So that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much, everyone,
Thank
for
you.
joining us for this episode. Thank you, Jane, for being here for opening season two for us. Yes.
Right.
Uh,
Thank you, and good luck.
yeah. Of course, we will be having another episode after this. The episode that you're watching now, of course, airs on a Wednesday for Writer Wednesday, and every Wednesday thereafter. Okay. And we'll see you next week for our next guest. But till the next episode, keep creating, and all of us will keep reading. Stay safe, stay creative, and namaste. Thank you. That was another episode of Urban Fantasy PH. Join us next time as we feature another creative soul who wants their art to be seen, heard, and shared. If you have your own work to share, just email us at urbanfantasyph@gmail.com. Till the next episode, this is independent author, singer-songwriter, radio personality, voice actor, and fellow creative, CJ Edmonds, reminding you to always listen to your heart, create with your mind, and share with your soul. Goodbye, everybody. Namaste. Blessed be.